Welcome back to Tartarian Tales number 35, and this one is going to be a continuation of the CIA edition, where I found a story that I wanted to relay because it's been lingering in my head for months now, and it has a little bit of information that I thought was pretty cool and I've been utilizing lately, so I wanted to show it all to you all so you could read it and read the whole story. So I've got a small little story that I'm going to read and some cool imagery, some great Tartarian-esque ancient architecture photos, and I just wanted to include this one at the beginning because this one really shows that we know nothing. It shows that there is so much buried below us at any point in time. Every field you see, every golf course, every cemetery could have something like this below it. They're the start of our civilization on Earth, and humans, and whatever was better than humans at one point, the giants, is so mysterious and so packed with clues surrounding us that I pray we find it out. So this is what the article is about, and the whole thing is about education in less developed countries, but it tells an example. The guy that does a speech in August 10th, 1965, I believe he was with Time magazine or something at the time, and he gives an amazing speech, and in the speech he tells a story about this guy that he meets who's a Tartarian, and it has a lot of cool inferences and things that I think we can learn from the last of the Tartarians, like a couple little clues that tell a little bit about the people that were vanquished. And so here we go. He says, I intend to approach this problem by citing several examples of problems met with in Soviet education. I have decided to do this for three reasons. In the first place, because I have had some opportunity to observe Soviet education at close range. In the second place, because the subject of this whole conference includes the phrase, in all countries of the world. Though nearly half of the human race currently lives in countries dominated by one kind of communism or another, no speaker has dealt in any detail with Soviet education. In the third place, because, as I hope to demonstrate, Soviet experience is relevant to and instructive in analyzing current educational problems in the less developed countries of the world. So he goes on to say, I went to the Soviet Union in 1932 as a very young man and worked for several years in a steel mill in the city of Magnitogorsk. A week after my arrival, another young man arrived in the city, about whom I would like to tell you, because through his eyes and experience I think I can make several points more clearly than I could with historic generalizations or statistics. Shaimat was a Tartar. He came from an obscure village in central Kazakhstan. When he arrived in Magnitogorsk, he had never seen an electric light, a staircase, or a locomotive. He had seen a hammer, but never used one. He was illiterate. He spoke almost no Russian. He communicated monosyllabically with fellow Tartars in that language. Furthermore, the village from which he came was a backward one, and people believed that washing more frequently than once a year was not only dangerous for one's health, but verged on the sacrilegious, because it jeopardized the lives of those parasites which they considered normal expressions of man's personality. That is amazing. Shaimat had many such parasites, and for this and other reasons, he was not a person one would select as a close associate if one had a choice. In this case, there was not much choice, for Shaimat arrived in our gang in response to an urgent request by the foreman to the personnel department of the plant for an electrician. It was immediately obvious when Shaimat appeared that he was not an electrician. But this did not disturb the foreman, who, accustomed to dealing with Soviet reality, did not need an electrician, but in fact only a body, a man to sit in a booth where we had motor generators producing direct current for electric wielding. There he was to watch an electric light bulb in the ceiling, and when it went out, as it did several times a day, as the result of breakdowns in the powerhouse or on the line, he was to switch the motors off, then switch them on again when the juice came back. The foreman undertook to explain this simple operation to Shaimat in sign language, and Shaimat went to work. During his first day, he burned out 3 motors. During the first week, several more. For the first month, Shaimat sat in his little booth gazing up at the large installations of the mill without any comprehension of what was going on. He had come to Magnitogorsk to get a larger bread ration card, which he had received, and that was the extent of his interest. But gradually 2 things happened to Shaimat. In the first place, he began to learn to speak the Russian language by a sort of osmosis in contact with the people around him. In the second place, he began to learn to read in a circle for adult illiterates, of whom there were at that time perhaps 50,000 in the city. I would see Shaimat at work laboriously spelling out words from a reader. As he learned to read, and as he learned to speak the language of the area, Shaimat's intellectual horizons suddenly broadened. He became aware of things which we in the West encounter at an early age, but which Shaimat in his 20s had previously been unaware of. He learned, for example, that he lived in a country called the Soviet Union. Previously, he had been aware of his village and of his province, but not of the Soviet Union. He learned that there was something called the 5-year plan. I remember his explanation of the substance of the plan. You see all those machines over there, and those miserable shoes pointing to his own ragged footwear? The leather that could have been my shoes was sent abroad to pay for those machines. A simplistic but essentially accurate description of the economics of the first 5-year plan. I remember on another occasion Shaimat's explanation to me of the purpose of our efforts in Magnitogorsk. You see, Shaimat knew that he had come a long way from his village to Magnitogorsk. He had walked about 3 weeks, and he knew that on arrival he had been very ignorant. He had been told by others that I came from America, which was even farther away, and he logically concluded that I must have been even more ignorant than he had been when I arrived. On this occasion, he undertook to explain to me what we were doing. You see, the idea here is to take that red dirt from the mountain up there and bring it down here and make iron out of it. A simplistic but essentially accurate description of the process of ferrous metallurgy. From that point on, Shaimat went very rapidly. I left the city in 1937, at which time Shaimat was going to night school studying about ergs and amperes and problems of electrotechnology, frequently studied in the West at university level. His way of life had changed radically. He washed regularly, he dressed much better, he read magazines and newspapers. These, to be sure, were tendentious, but Shaimat's horizons had broadened more than had those of his Tartar antecedents since the days of Genghis Khan. Shaimat was not alone. The entire community at this time was going through a similar metamorphosis. Some 2/3 of the 230,000 inhabitants of Magnitogorsk were going to some kind of school, studying everything from engineering to literacy, along with obligatory courses in political orientation. Yikes. So that's how it goes. They take people that are from third world-ish countries. They move them around, fill them, put them in places, and give them the Western education that makes them so smart. Nowadays, they'd give them smartphones, and they would be like, wow, I'm so smart. But is all of that smarter? Like, the one thing that caught my attention and that made me want to redo this and read this for all you guys was the fact that he was living without cleaning himself. He'd clean himself once a year. Now, I find that absolutely incredible because I am a big stickler for just the belief that shampoo is a sham of poo, of poison that you put in your hair. And I believe that 99% of the soaps out there are unbearably toxic. And just like in the gut, how they'll tell you, oh, antibiotics are nice. They don't do anything bad to your stomach or your intestines. Meanwhile, they ravage and kill everything that's good. I think that I'm willing to believe that our skins are probably supposed to have different parasites growing on them, different things that make our bodies more unique and much more healthy, probably, because all this sterilization, all this antibacterial crap, all this just nonsense sterilizes this world, gets rid of an entire array of life forms that are microscopic, that were necessary and have always been necessary, and we're just slowly getting rid of them on our hands, everywhere. Everyone's so worried about grooming and shaving. It's like all that hair has a purpose, everything has a purpose, but we're just so deluded with our education, our Western education, and all these ideas that the media puts out there that are just designed to make people profit. They're not designed to improve the health of anyone. They're not designed to make a society better as a whole or healthier as a whole. They're just designed for people to profit. And that's pretty much what the Western world is. So what's better, communism or this? And I think they both kind of stink. But there's so much out there that we don't know. And these people, and this guy was clearly not in any relation to this technology, these master technologies of these architects that I'm showing in these videos. But as time went on, how many times did the place get reset? How many times did Shaimat's ancestors go from living in a beautiful place like this to living in a mess and being a nomad, being a wanderer, or go from knowing about these things? How far back did these go? How is it possible? And how many generations ago were these buildings built? These ones that go immensely underground. These ones that make you think that below your feet everywhere is civilization is an ancient civilization that nobody talks about, no one discusses. There's no pictures, there's no books of who constructed, who architected, who created these plans, how they did it. Nothing exists anymore. We've just been reset so many times. And these Tartarians were reset by the CIA, by communism. All of them were part of the same team to reset Tartar and do everything they could and to find the last remaining third world people, underdeveloped people, and bring them into this new modern light. Tell them the history. Tell them the truth. Tell them that this world is political and the magic that they may have seen this world at is not accurate. Tell them again that the world is yay big and show them a map of it. Meanwhile, they had previously thought it was incredibly small, but it's actually way bigger than what they tell us. So there's so many lies everywhere about everything. In our modern education now, you have to basically reverse engineer anytime someone says smart or this is good for you. You have to reverse engineer it and find out what's actually true, because everyone's lying, everyone wants to make money, and this world needs to change. It needs to have good intentions for everything. For education needs strong intentions to make the world better, save Earth, to do good. Bless you all.